And Gary Booysen from Rand Swiss joins me now to talk on today's market developments. Gary, as always, many thanks for your time this afternoon. Let's start with those overall markets, that performance that we saw today. Much like yesterday, the local bourse being dragged by heavyweights like Naspers and Prosus, assuming it's still got to do with what's happening in China and the cracking down on tech companies where the Tencent investment is.
Absolutely. So the overall market was down around 1.04%. But yeah, we weren't rescued quite like we were yesterday by the resources. So the resource index was flat, but the industrial index, which obviously contains the Tencent process listings, down 2.6%. And this really, as you say, it's coming on the back of the regulatory crackdowns in China. We saw Tencent, which is the big asset held by Naspers, down 9.5% at one point. So, if you turn that into real numbers, over the last 2 days, the company's lost around $100 billion. So we're talking about just under a third of South Africa's annual GDP that's been wiped out by this regulatory crackdown from the Chinese government.
Very interesting insights indeed. Let's stick with company news. AVI releasing a trading update, also indicating how they were impacted by the looting that we saw 2 weeks ago. I mean, what did you make of what they had to say? I mean, they do carry some of our favorite brands.
Yeah, of course. And, you would expect them to do slightly better, under the lockdown than some other companies, just because they, as you say, they've got strong brands and at the same time, they really are dealing with a consumer staple. It's also a very conservatively run business. So in the trading statement, not a huge amount of detail, but we did see that group revenues were up about 0.5%. Which really is a decent result, I think, in a very, very difficult operating environment. Remember, it is a more conservatively run company. You're not looking for big growth. Most of the actual volumes across their different businesses were down. The one business that stood out was INJ. So INJ actually managing to increase volumes. They did get some pricing through as well. Obviously with the increased input costs, it's a difficult business at the moment. So with higher input costs, they've had to pass that on to the consumers. But the consumers have managed to absorb it, and the company looking okay.
A business that I wouldn't call very difficult at the moment would be platinum mining, Gary. Kumba coming out with its numbers today. And much like Anglo Platinum yesterday, reporting some really solid numbers. And, of course, giving back in terms of taxes into the fiscus. I mean, that's good news.
No, certainly good news, and I think at a time where the South African government will certainly appreciate it. So, obviously, Kumba Iron Ore, just benefiting from the rise in iron ore prices, along with other commodity prices. So, it returned 23.4 billion rand to shareholders in the form of dividends. So not quite what Anglo Platinum did yesterday with its 46 billion return, but still another one in the Anglo-American stable, really, really shooting the lights out, mainly driven by the higher commodity prices. It's good to see that they also, they remain fatality-free. But obviously, as you mentioned, the taxes, I mean, just for this half, Kumba has put 9.3 billion rand back into the fiscus in terms of taxes. So it is nice when you have a company like this that has big operating leverage, that the cost base is largely fixed, and when you suddenly get this big kick up in the price of their commodity, all that profit flows to the bottom line, and obviously that means taxes for the government.
Gary Booysen from Rand Swiss, thank you for your time as always. Would have loved to touch on Sasol, but that story is always developing and we can touch on it another time. We'll be back in the next bulletin, and we still focus on what's happening with Transnet, which has the monopoly on the country's ports and railways, and really, Sally, how they're planning on getting out of the situation.
Yeah, this is something that's going to really impact our exports, and our exports are so crucial to our economy.
That's right.
It's really an important one. We're also going to try and pursue the fresh produce associations to see exactly what kind of a crunch they are in and how quickly this problem can be resolved. It's an absolutely important one.
That's right.
Thank you very much, Oropiwe.